The giant golden, America's Got Talent, logo glimmered above the stage as the next contestant stepped into the spotlight. The audience murmured, just one man, carrying a small, battered guitar. His shoes were scuffed, his jeans worn, and his eyes looked both hopeful and afraid. Simon Cowell adjusted his mic. "Hello there. What's your name?" The man swallowed. I'm Ethan Miles, sir. I'm 29. I'm from St. Louis. How are you feeling today, Ethan?" asked Sofia Vergara kindly, sensing the nervousness. He gave a small, shaky smile. "Honestly, terrified." The audience chuckled softly. Simon tilted his head. "Well, that's understandable. What do you do for a living?" I used to work at a diner. But I had to quit last year. My mom got sick, she couldn't walk anymore. So I take care of her full-time." A ripple of silence moved through the theater. Simon nodded slowly. "That's very noble of you. And what are you going to perform for us today?" "I wrote a song. It's called, Home Is Her Smile." "All right," Simon said, leaning back. "Good luck, Ethan." Ethan nodded and strummed the first chord, but his hand trembled, and a loud twang echoed through the hall. He flinched, muttered an apology, and tried again. His voice cracked on the first verse. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Simon raised his hand. Hold on, Ethan." Ethan froze. "Why yes, sir." Simon sighed gently. "Look, I appreciate your story. But you're too nervous, mate. The performance isn't there. You should probably go home, work on your confidence, and come back when you're ready." Ethan nodded quickly, his eyes stinging. "Yes, sir. I understand." He turned, shoulders drooping. The stage lights dimmed slightly as he began to walk off. Then, a faint voice came from the front row. A small girl, maybe 7, stood up, clutching a tiny handmade sign. "Pink Heart, sing for your mom, Ethan." The cameras zoomed in. The audience began to clap softly, one by one. Simon looked around, surprised. Sofia smiled at the girl. "Ah, that's so sweet." Ethan stopped halfway off the stage, staring at the sign. His throat tightened. He turned back toward the judges. "Sir, could I try one more time? Just once, for her." Simon hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right. One more shot." The audience erupted into cheers. Ethan closed his eyes, exhaled shakily, and began again. This time, his voice wasn't perfect, but it was real. Every word trembled with love, pain, and devotion. Greater than, she taught me how to walk, now she can't stand tall. But she smiles through the night, and that's my home after all. The crowd went silent, completely still, as the music swelled. Even Simon leaned forward, his usual steel expression softening. By the last note, Ethan's tears streamed down his cheeks. The entire audience rose in a standing ovation. Sofia dabbed at her eyes. Heidi clapped over her head. Simon looked down, blinking. Then he said quietly, "Ethan, I told you to go home. But I'm so glad you didn't." The crowd roared. Sofia hit the golden buzzer, sending gold confetti raining over Ethan as he fell to his knees, crying. Months later, Ethan stood backstage at the live finals. His mom, now in a wheelchair, was watching from the front row. She wore a pink scarf, her favorite color, and held that same sign. "Pink Heart, sing for your mom, Ethan." The pressure was immense. All around him, other contestants buzzed with nerves and excitement. Ethan closed his eyes, clutching the guitar that had carried him this far. He whispered to himself, "Just be kind. Just sing from your heart." Moments later, the lights dimmed. The host's voice echoed through the massive theater. "Next up, the man who taught us that love can make music even in silence, Ethan Miles." The crowd cheered. Ethan stepped forward, but as he did, he saw a stagehand rushing toward Simon's table. Something seemed wrong. The man whispered urgently in Simon's ear. Simon's face fell slightly. Still, the show went on. Ethan sat down with his guitar, unaware of what was happening. Simon took a deep breath. He looked shaken but tried to smile. "Ethan, before you start, I just want to say, no matter what happens tonight, you've already done something extraordinary. You reminded us all why kindness matters." Ethan smiled gently. "Thank you, sir." He began to strum. The song was new, titled, "The Man I Met on the Street." It was inspired by a real encounter just days earlier. Ethan had met a homeless man near the studio, given him a sandwich and a blanket, and listened to his story. The man had lost everything, but still thanked Ethan with the words, "You gave me hope again." Now, Ethan sang those words on stage. Greater than, he had no name, no place to be. But he gave me faith when he smiled at me. He said, "Son, don't forget, life's not about gold. It's about giving warmth when the nights get cold." As his voice echoed through the hall, Simon looked down at his phone, tears glimmering in his eyes. The stagehand's whisper had been about a tragedy. One of Simon's old friends had just passed away. But in that moment, Ethan's song, pure, selfless, filled with compassion, gave Simon something to hold on to. By the final chorus, the entire audience was crying. When the music ended, there was a pause, the kind of silence that only comes after something sacred. Then, thunderous applause. Ethan looked out, overwhelmed. His mother was sobbing and smiling at once. Simon stood up, clapping slowly. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Ethan, tonight, you did something very rare. You reminded all of us that kindness, real kindness, doesn't need fame, or perfection, or money. It just needs heart." He took a deep breath. "I told you to go home that first day. But now I realize, the world is your home, Ethan. Because wherever you go, you bring love with you." The audience stood again, chanting Ethan's name. Sophia cried openly. Heidi hugged Simon. Even Howie was speechless. Ethan knelt beside his mother's wheelchair as confetti rained again. Not gold this time, but silver and white, shimmering like tears. He whispered to her, "We made it, Mom." She reached up, cupping his face. "No, my boy. You made the world a little kinder." The crowd cheered louder. The camera zoomed in on Simon, for once, smiling through tears, as he whispered under his breath, "Thank you for not going home." Ethan didn't win the competition, but he didn't need to. His audition went viral, viewed over 200 million times. People around the world were inspired to perform small acts of kindness, to strangers, family, neighbors. Months later, he opened a small foundation called Home is Her Smile, helping caregivers, street performers, and struggling artists. And every year, Simon Cowell donated anonymously, under the name, Someone Who Told Him to Go Home.